Bill stole it.
I'll touch it just this one.
Thanks, Bill. All right, it is 6:30. We will call our November council meeting to order at this time. Welcome to those in attendance, those watching at home, and to the council. At this time, we'll have the clerk call the roll.
Beeman,
Here.
Debates, Cummings,
Here.
Norrell,
Here.
Bolt, Ruckelberg,
Here.
Sikowitz,
Here.
Vanderkin,
Here.
Bry,
Here.
Schley,
Here.
all members present.
Thank you. At this time, will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and if you could remain standing after the pledge for a prayer by our council president, Bill Schley. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for this evening and for this gathering. And we want to thank you for the long and tempestuous road we've had putting together another budget. And hopefully we can all come to an agreement that will move our city forward, as is the motto of our state of Wisconsin. And we also want to throw out an extra thank you to the Green Bay Packers, Carl Brooks. And that's all I'm going to say about that. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. All right, thank you, Alderman Schley. We have no presentations this evening, so we'll move right into public hearings. First one is for the purpose of hearing any citizen or taxpayer on the proposed budget for the upcoming year. I'll have the clerk read the proof of publication.
Notice of this public hearing was published in the Herald Times Reporter on November 3rd, 2024.
Thank you. So this is for the budget specifically. We do have regular public input as well, but if there's anyone interested in speaking on anything germane to the proposed 2025 budget, you may speak now. You could just state your name and address for the record. I think I have him back there first, and I'll get to you. Just make sure the light is green on the microphone, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Gary Stolp. I live here in the Manitowoc area, and I previously owned multiple area restaurants that I retired from recently. I am the vice chair of the Manitowoc Area Visitor and Convention Bureau. You may remember us as the former A-frame building that is now a car wash. I am here today so that the City of Manitowoc taxpayers are aware of the status of MAVCB and Manitowoc's current tourism picture. Let's go back a time between 1992 and 1995 when the city borrowed funds from the state of Wisconsin to build the A-frame building. It served as a viable center that once was the second highest visitor center in the state of Wisconsin, only behind the one on I-94 by the Illinois border. Room tax dollars were used to pay back that loan. Now the city evicted MAVCB out of the building and tore it down, sold the building for $1.6 million, gave $650,000 to the state for their part in the property that they owned in there, and kept $950,000 into a tourism slush fund to run the MAVCB out of business. Twice on March 9th of 2023 and May 21st, 2024, Judge Rohr ruled that the city was negligent and had to contract with MAVCB. In the last 6 months, the city has failed to submit a contract to MAVCB according to what the lawsuit stated they should do. Instead, they used taxpayer dollars to fund the operations of Visit Manitowoc. The city is currently able to spend their share, which is approximately $230,000 of current room tax, which is 30% of all of the room tax monies that are collected in the city of Manitowoc. And the MAVCB gets zero. Previously, we were in a contract where we had 52% coming from the city budget and also from Two Rivers budget. The mayor's budget that goes for approval tonight has budgeted $642,000 for Visit Manitowoc. They're doing this by using the tourism slush fund to help cover the operations. The extra $412,000 should not be allowed to be used. This morning, I initiated an open records request from the 1992-95 for the funding that took place for the building. My knowledge of how the original A-frame visitor center was funded was through city room tax dollars through the Visitor and Convention Bureau before it became the Manitowoc Area Visitor and Convention Bureau. That it was known as the Manitowoc Visitor and Convention Bureau at that time. About 49% of the total room tax money that went to the city's general marketing fund, 49% went to Manitowoc Visitor and Convention Bureau, and 2% went to the city for administration of collection of the taxes and filing the proper paperwork. Manitowoc Visitor Convention Bureau has made the repayment money for the loan, that the city took out with the state of Wisconsin. This money is now being used against MAVCB to run us out of money so that the city can take over the entire 100% of the room tax allotment. On March 21st of this year, the League of Women Voters Forum, I personally asked candidates for the city council if they were to use any of the taxpayer money, funds to pay for Visit Manitowoc. Every candidate of the 8 candidates said they would not use city taxpayer money. Tonight, we have 4 aldermen who were elected in April, Mr. Sikowitz, Mr. Schley, Mr. Norrell, Mr. Bry. They all had said no. Hopefully, they will continue to follow and not approve using this money from the slush fund on there. And hopefully, the rest of the council will do the same. One more thing, area tourism can only be properly tracked through room tax dollars. In the last 28 months, the room tax dollars have gone down year over year for 22 of the 28 months since Manitowoc has cut off MAVCB. After a 6-month period, the following 28 months, 22 of them have been down. And just this last October, down again. So how effective is the Manitowoc Tourism, the mayor's Manitowoc Tourism Department? We need to get this contract worked out ASAP so that the area doesn't miss out on the NFL draft being held here in Green Bay in April and all the other tourist events for the future. Let's not look for just the short term of running MAVCB out of business. Let's look at the long-term approach in being able to move the city forward and being able to promote Manitowoc as the entity, the great entity that it is, the gem along the lakeshore. The city council needs to stop action on the budget and rectify this wrong to the city budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else interested in speaking on the 2025 budget? Yes, please just state your name and address.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tom Goss. I live at 2020 Markham Street in Manitowoc, Wisconsin, and I'm a lifelong resident, born and raised in the Manitowoc city. I'm here because of a note I saw the mayor make in the news lately about Red Arrow Park. It's something that I'm very passionate about. Having grown up on that park for about 70 years of my life, I myself plodded along that beach in my entire life with my 2 sons and their children. So I'm very interested in developing that site as something that can be a very useful community activity area. Right now, in my position on it is that access from the top hill area down to the beach is not very good. It's like a ski slope going down to the beach. And we need to address that. And the other part of it is we have no washdown station for kids coming up from the beach. I'd like to share just 2 stories that I witnessed recently. We have this wonderful sand castle event down there. It draws thousands of people from around our community and outside. The last one, I was sitting in one of the benches on top of the hill. I always catch an ice cream from Cedar Crest and camp out up there throughout the summer. And I witnessed some family members going down to the blacktop path and pulling their older family members up the hill. It's just difficult for some people, you know, with bad hips and knees to make that trek. A couple weeks later, I'm sitting doing the same thing, having my ice cream, and I'm watching this little girl cut through the grass paths that lead from the beach area up to the blacktop walkway. And she's carrying a pail. And I'm wondering, why would this little gal be bringing sand or stones up to that pathway? Well, what she was actually doing was carrying a pail of water up to the pathway, waiting for other siblings to come up there so the mother could wash their feet off in the pail so they wouldn't drag the sand up in their $50,000 SUV or whatever they were driving. Now, I've been retired for about 7 years and had the good fortune of traveling around the state, and I've seen some remarkable recreational venues. And one of them that caught my eye lately was over in the Prairie du Sac, Sauk City area on a place called Riverview Overlook. About the same area as Red Arrow Beach and I'm gonna say Red Arrow Beach from Green Street to where the kids' equipment is on the south end. About the same distance, and they also had a hill problem. And what they did is they chopped into that hill they have and level out a section, which would be about where our pathway is now, level that all out, put a nice 15-foot wide section in there, and off of that section, they have, which would be our hillside, sitting areas cut into their bank with sun shields over the top and various other things. So what I'm offering here tonight is, I'm retired, I have the time, I'd like to be a participant in the detailed development of this venue. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else interested in speaking on the 2025 proposed budget? Yes, please just state your name and address for the record.
Thanks, Mayor. Lee Coomer, 3300 Lindbergh Drive here in Manitowoc. A couple of observations to follow up a little bit on what Gary Stolp had made reference to. I sat in your seats for 4 years, several years ago. I served two-year terms. At that time, I was appointed for a couple of the years to be the MAVCB representative for the council. So I had an opportunity to see that agency work, take a look at their budget on a regular basis, and see, I mean, no agency is perfect, okay? Let's put that out there. But the advantage of the MAVCB was that it was county-wide. So we had representatives on that board from Pine River Dairy, from Schrader's Department Store, from places in Manitowoc. And it was wonderful from that standpoint because it had an opportunity to promote all of the attractions within the county. Now, what happened a couple of years ago when Manitowoc decided to go its own, just to give you a little background, and some of you have maybe heard this story, but we were up in Sturgeon Bay vacationing, and the guy next to me said to me, "Where are you from?" I said, "Manitowoc." He said, "Oh, you got problems in Manitowoc. You know what your mayor's trying to do with the room tax money?" He said, "What he's trying to do is illegal." Well, here we are now, fast forward 2 years later, and it's been ruled by Judge Mark Rohr here in Manitowoc that the actions of the city haven't been legal. I'm a retired lawyer. I know lawyers are expensive. When you're hiring a lawyer for 3 years to litigate stuff, I don't know if the council knows what's been invested in legal fees in this matter. Maybe you know, maybe some do, maybe some don't. I'd venture to bet it's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And where's that money come from? You could say it's not coming from taxpayer money because it's coming from the room tax reserve money. But the bottom line is then that room tax reserve money isn't being used to promote the city of Manitowoc. It also may help to explain why when the position was published for somebody to lead this new Department of Tourism, that the candidates were few and far between, because think about it, who in their right mind, if you're in that industry, is going to apply for a job when there's litigation pending, whether or not that position is going to continue going forward? I would encourage you to take the steps to eliminate this Department of Tourism for the city of Manitowoc. Now, if Mr. Stolp's numbers are right, and there's $240,000 coming in, that could be used this year to wind it down. But let's get back to what we're supposed to be doing, is creating a full experience for tourists. Now, if you go to the Manitowoc website, you can see what's going on in Manitowoc. It may not be enough for people to consider coming here for 2 or 3 days. But if they went to a website and saw the activities in Manitowoc County, I think you've got a much better chance of having people come, stay overnight, spend a few bucks, because they're getting the whole picture. And I really think that deserves some merit. It's going to take a lot of guts. It's going to take a whole lot of guts. But this has been going on for 2 years, and the numbers apparently are down on room tax collection. You're spending, I would argue, hundreds of thousands of dollars to defend this after you've been found that the city's in violation of state law. So wind that down, go back to the MAVCB, and let's move forward. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the 2025 city budget? Any further discussion? We got 65 million other dollars. None? All right, we'll close the public hearing for the 2025 budget. We'll move to the next public hearing, which is the purpose of hearing any and all interested parties in the matter of a proposed street vacation for an unimproved Ebony Avenue. We'll have Adam Tagan give a brief update on this, and we'll have the clerk read the proof of publication.
Notice of this public hearing was published in the Herald Times Reporter on October 28th, November 4th, and November 11th, 2024.
Thank you. Adam?
All right, I think this one's pretty straightforward. The street vacation is basically to realign a road. We're basically changing it from a 90-degree corner to a curving corner. This is at the request of the developer of the subdivision, who owns all the surrounding properties, except for those he is attempting to sell for single-family residential. So obviously, city initiated this just to make it flow better and the lot layout to work better.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council? If not, this is a public hearing for this specific subject matter. If there's anyone interested in speaking on this specific subject matter, you may do so at this time. Anyone interested in speaking on this matter once, twice? We'll close that public hearing. We'll move to the next public hearing, which is hearing any and all interested parties in the matter of a proposed amendment to conditional use permit located at 1000 South 35th Street for a transitional housing use. We'll have the clerk read the proof of publication.
Notice of this public hearing was published in the Herald Times Reporter on November 4th and November 11th, 2024.
Thank you. Adam?
All right, I believe most of you are familiar with Hope House. This is a conditional use permit that was originally granted in 2016 within the B3 zoning district. They have operated since that time continuously. It was amended in 2018 as well. Basically, the request is to change the number of potential residents from 26 to 35. All other conditions and modes of operation will remain largely the same. The city has talked to the building inspection and fire department to work out the layout and make sure that we're aware of who would be where in the event of an emergency. That was one concern. Other than that, no comments or concerns were provided to the city by neighbors or members of the public. Based on that, Plan Commission and staff recommends approval of the conditional use subject to the 8 conditions.
Any questions from the council? If not, then this is a public hearing for this specific subject matter. Is there anyone interested in speaking on this specific subject matter? Once, twice. We'll close that public hearing. We'll move then to more public input. This is the general public input for anything germane to the business of the city of Manitowoc. Is there anyone interested in speaking for regular public input? Anyone interested? Oh, yeah. Please, if you just want to state your name and address for the record, please.
Joanne Woodnick,
Oh, you want to,
3783 Macklin Street, Manitowoc.
we got that.
I live in a complex. One of them, it was Central Park West, and then Bentley Manor was also purchased. When they purchased it in November, we thought they were from Florida, is what they told us, but they ended up finding out they're from Jerusalem. They've raised, my rent went up 66%. And we were notified it's going up another 200%, $200 next year. So I'll be paying almost $1,600 for nothing extra, because I have to pay all utilities and everything. Why doesn't Wisconsin have some kind of a law that they can't do this? And there's no place to go. I looked for 2 months. I have a rescue English cream golden. Nobody will take her because she's too big. I've even called Tammy Baldwin. Never heard back from her. I've talked to geez, I gotta look. Paul Tittle. I've talked to Tammy Baldwin, and the 9th District. He was outed this year, but somebody else moved in, but I can't get any answers. I've been to the courthouse, I've been to City Hall, I've been to a lawyer's office. Nobody can do anything. Is there anything possible that we can do?
Fortunately, we can't have back and forth conversation and public input, but if you want to leave your name and number with us, like myself or whomever, we can contact you and talk personally.
Okay.
Versus this venue, but if you want to leave that information, maybe with the fire chief back there.
I've been to your office, but you were out of state.
Okay, well, I'd be happy to talk to you if you leave a name and number.
All right,
Okay.
I don't know if everybody knows what's going on in this town, but the rents have gone up so much, and there's no place to go. So I was forced into signing another contract, and it says, Social Security doesn't go up 66%. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. Anyone else interested in speaking for public input? Once, twice. We will close public input. We'll move then, we do not have any appointments. We'll move to the consent agenda. Is there any item to be removed from the consent agenda? If not, I'd look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Who made the motion, sorry?
I did, sorry.
Okay, Alderman Cummings and Alderman Vanderkin. No discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Move then to committee reports. We'll start with Committee of the Whole and Council President Bill Schley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The clerk has the documents.
We have document 2031, which is a 2022 cost settlement agreement with Newell Operating Company. Committee returns same, recommending to approve the settlement agreement pending any minor revisions by legal counsel.
Council, your pleasure on this report.
Move to approve the agreement pending any changes or additions in the agreement down the road.
Second.
Motion second, discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Anything else, Alderman Schley?
That's it. Don't know when the next committee of the whole will be, but I'm sure it'll be in a month.
Thank you. Move then to the Finance Committee and Alderman Jim Bry as chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The clerk has our documents, and I'm assuming we'll be starting off with a potential, discussion of the proposed 2025 budget as passed by the Finance Committee, correct?
We have document 1957, which is the general city budget of proposed 2024 levy for 2025 in the amount of $19,043,593 with $1,518,202 in proposed tax incremental financing. Committee returns same, recommending to adopt as recommended by the mayor's proposal.
Council, your pleasure on the budget.
Move for the adoption of the committee's report, Mr. Mayor.
Motion and a second by Schley. Discussion, Alderman Bry, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And first of all, thank you for the input tonight. I appreciate it very much. We didn't have any input at our Finance Committee, and if I remember correctly, there was no other alderman there as well, but I did hear some from other things. So just quickly, just giving a couple of quick points. The Finance Committee looked at the budget as presented by the mayor. Originally, it had a 2.59% increase to make the rate per thousand 6.7150. Unfortunately, we received some bad news from the state regarding our manufacturing assessments. So with that, the budget was essentially increased, or came essentially from the mayor in his presentation, that the increase would be 3.23% increase with a tax rate of 6.7681 per thousand. The Finance Committee looked at the budget. There was no motions or any amendments made at that time, so we motioned to bring it here to the Common Council tonight as presented by the mayor. So that's where we're at. So I'll be definitely open for discussion as we go. I guess just one little thing, if there are amendments, I guess I'm gonna play my county board rule. If anybody had a chance to watch the county board meeting last week, there was a lot of different kinds of amendments. I was using point of order because the amendments were very generic. If you're gonna make an amendment, it has to have the fiscal impact as well with it. So I guess, I don't want to say point of order at any time tonight, so thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion, Alderman Norrell.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I appreciate the public comment as well. As I look at the city budget, I see that this year our 2025 principal payments are about $694,000 less than our debt that we are borrowing in 2025. And while I'm not opposed to the Red Arrow project, I appreciate the access. At this point, I want to make a motion to reduce the city of Manitowoc's 2025 capital borrowing from $7.179982 million to $6,679,982 by removing the $500,000 Red Arrow Boat Beach Access Launch Reconstruction Project.
There's a motion to amend. Is there a second? Motion and a second by Reckelberg. Discussion. Alderman Vanderkin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, this is my district. Unfortunately, I've had a lot of constituents reach out to me, previously in the past that, a lot of renovations needed at Red Arrow Park, and I wholeheartedly agree. But to support this is kind of being, fiscally irresponsible when there's just concepts of a plan and we're dedicating about $500,000 to this in this budget and then at least another $500,000 in the next budget handicapping ourselves. So as much as I would love to see the improvements at Red Oak Park, I can't support this from a fiscal perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion, Alderman Sitkowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I take a look at the capital budget, and we discussed it at finance, but even more importantly, we discussed it at a committee of the whole meeting where we had all the alders here talking about what roads they wanted done in 2025 and going forward. So it came as no surprise that when the budget was presented, that it did exactly what council had asked for and included a huge percentage of the capital borrowing for roads. Now, it's easy to say we're gonna do roads this year and neglect everything else, but the only park in this year's budget that's getting any upgraded is the project at Red Arrow. So I don't know when the shift happened that all of a sudden we don't want to invest in quality of life and the park system. We've done a good job of updating the rest of our other parks in the city. And Red Arrow has always been something that we've talked about moving towards. When we take a look at some of the events that are held there, the sand sculpting is one of the largest events held at that beach. It's now going to be in its third year. It brings in thousands of people from outside the area to spend dollars here. And I don't know why we would not want to invest in making that a more family-friendly entertainment area for people to enjoy the lakeshore. When, I've lived Two Rivers, a lot of credit what they've done with their beach. You drive there on a hot, sunny day, and there are thousands of people enjoying the lakefront there. One, there's easy parking, there's easy access, they have concessions, and they have ways to make sure that you can wash up after you're in the water and sand, so you're not taking that with you. At Red Arrow, we don't have that. And when you take a look at what it's gonna take to do that, it takes dollars and an investment into that. I don't know why we would not move forward with the funding on this. If there's other items in the borrowing that we wanna cut, we went with a lot of roads. If we wanna cut some roads, we can do that, but I'm sure nobody will wanna do that when the road is in their district. But when there's something that benefits the entire community, it's easy to cut it and say we don't need it. So I'm gonna be voting no against this amendment.
Thank you. I have Alderman Bry next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I applaud Alderman Norrell for making the correct motion. I appreciate that very much. And while I understand the spirit of it, I guess I tend to agree with Alderman Sikowitz's comments. This is the only item for discussion, I guess, in the budget for, capital improvements with the budget with the park system. But the comment of financial, it's not insecurity, I guess, just whatever the comment was, I guess, detrimental. We have to remember too, and I understand debt is a problem. We have to look at it. But as debt goes further, we also realize that the debt that we are putting on for this budget in 2025 will not start being repaid until 2026. So there is that year portion of it. I was never going to support removing this, but the gentleman who spoke during public comment just gave me added fuel to that. I mean, to say that we're fiscally irresponsible is ludicrous. We've got a plan, and we have money put for that plan. But to get what we really want to do, to have input from the citizens, I think is the right way to go, and we have that ability. We have a gentleman who volunteered tonight who's lived in that area and played in that and been in that park many times. That was my park of choice way back in the day. And it still was my kids' park as well. So I encourage all of you to vote no on this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the amendment? Alderman Reckelberg, then Cummings.
Yeah, thank you. First off, it was mentioned, but maybe not enough. It's not a $500,000 project. It's $1 million project. I don't disagree with doing something there, but it's not like nothing has been done at that park over time. I mean, I remember going there were 2 baseball diamonds. Now there's 1. There is that, the flags and the other things. I mean, it's dressed up really nice on the front end. It really is, and it's been changed. Granted, not much, if anything, has been done from the parking lot down to the lake. And I think something should be done there. I just don't think for next year to do that, but I certainly would encourage getting the input necessary, like that gentleman had talked about, where he visited the other one, where you'd have to excavate half the hill, let's say, put in parkings. In other words, what would it really take to make it work? And I don't think even $1 million will do it. But I'd like to see a sketch and some ballpark estimates as to what will it take to really do it right, and then run it up the flagpole, and I probably will support it at that time. Yeah, the gentleman was here to speak for it, but there was a lady up here too, speaking what? Help me. One of the things is we got to watch our debt. If we adopt it as is, our debt over the last 2 years, outstanding has gone up, what, over $1.2 million, almost 1.3. It's going in the wrong direction. And it doesn't matter that it, well, yeah, you don't start paying for it till next year, but then what's going to happen? I think part of the plan on this is to have a good budget, realistic, and hopefully set ourselves up for the next year's budget without just keeping it. I mean, you've got a $35 million road project listed for the next 5 years, I believe it is. And I'm assuming most, if not all of that right now is assumed to be debt. So, you know, I disagree and agree with Alder Sikowitz on occasion, but, you know, this is where you have to sit and look at it and analyze it and say, where are we going next year? Granted, we ask for roads, but there's a system for the roads, and that's that PASER system, and I probably pronounce it, but the PASER system. And when the PASER system gives you a score of this, there's nobody up here that's going to deny fixing that road, and all the roads on that are at the low end and need work. So I certainly would support this, and I hope others will, but as they say at this stage of the game, let the chips fall where they may. So thank you.
Thank you. Still on the amendment, which is talking about removing Red Arrow, Alderman Cummings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know I can certainly appreciate my fellow alders wanting to, you know, find ways to reduce the budget, you know, and I fully get that argument. But I cannot support removing this from the budget. And part of the reason isn't necessarily a dollars and cents thing. You know, the way I look at Red Arrow Park is that could be is a jewel for Manitowoc, like something like we talked about where festivities are coming to Manitowoc, things that we can be proud of. I mean, we just go right up the road. I'm going to give Two Rivers some praise. They got Neshoto Beach, beautiful beach. We go there with our families, probably more than I actually went to Red Arrow Park. Part of the reason why we don't go to Red Arrow Park is because Neshoto Beach is just better. Now, if we can start investing in Red Arrow Park and get that to be a jewel for our city, that's something that people in our community can be proud of, people will go to, it'll bring people together, and it'll do more good for the community than $500 or $500,000 off of this year's budget. And whatever that equals per resident off of their taxes, $10, $5, whatever that is, right? But at least if we start investing now, whether it's $1 million project, like Alder Eckleberg said, or 500,000, like in this budget, it's putting us in that right direction to make Red Arrow Beach and Park what it should be and what it should have always been. So if we can start investing in that, I'm well for it. Thing is, roads, show me a city in Wisconsin that has perfect roads, that nobody complains about roads. If we want to cut from somewhere, cut 500,000 from a road. Like, we're always going to have bad roads. I hate to say it. We can invest 35 million in 5 years, 7 years, whatever it is, and we'll still get complaints for bad roads. It's just part of living in Wisconsin and road construction. But to have a jewel like we have and as much beach access like we have, to have that not be better than what it currently is, that's the wrong per se, which this budget is going to start to correct. So I'll be not in support of removing that.
Thank you. I have Alderman Schley next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Basically, what's being proposed here is a park project, the only park project this year, get pushed down the road. And it's kind of funny, but if you look at other public projects around here, you push it down the road too far and suddenly you've got a courthouse we can't afford to repair. Our road situation is it ain't as bad as some cities, but it's kind of bad in a lot of places. So now we're stuck with some big bills, and it's time to pay the bill, okay? I walked Red Arrow Park the other day, and there's a big mural, and I believe it's a World War II vet looking down from that wall. And all I could think about was, they want to cut funding for this park? That's like spitting in that veteran's eye, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Alderman Sitkwitz next.
Thank you. Just a point of information on, I heard if this was cut, that it would reduce the tax bill that went out to individuals. That's not true at all. It's the borrowing that is cutting, which would affect future bills down the road possibly. But the levy is what affects the tax bill that goes out this year. And this does not in any way affect the levy portion of it. So I just want to make sure everybody's clear on that when we fund Red Arrow Park, it's not increasing your taxes this year.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the amendment? We do also, Alderman Vanderkin, apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to clarify some comments here, I just want to say that's kind of offensive from Council President Schley saying that spitting in a veteran's face, being as a veteran myself, that nobody's saying they're against the amendments here. We just mainly just want to see a plan here, and I don't see a plan. And from what Alder Sikowitz said, it was like nobody wants to cut projects from their district. I'm the one that's sitting here saying that I'm advocating for cutting a budget from my district because ultimately we don't have a plan. We're just blindly allocating funds at this point. So hardly I can't support this. Thank you.
Thank you. I was going to say, we do have staff here that can talk about the plan since it wasn't talked about at Finance Committee or elsewhere. So we do have Parks staff here that if you're interested in getting into specifics, they're here to take your questions about this as well. So Alderman Schley.
Real quickly, that monument down there is to honor veterans, and it's the only, I'm just repeating myself here just in case anybody forgot, it's the only park project on the docket this year, the only park project that is being proposed for cutting. And in my opinion, I stand by my opinion. Once again, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Cummings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to request then the city staff just go over the plan for the public.
Sure, absolutely. Dan and Brock, if you want to come up. You want to go to the podium, please? State your name just in case everyone doesn't know you.
My name is Brock Wettenkamp. I am the Parks Planner for the City of Manitowoc.
And I am Dan Koski. I'm the Director of Public Infrastructure.
So just to go over our plan for Red Arrow Park. Accessibility has been something that we've been striving for in all of our parks these last few years. We've recently installed accessible walkways to pickleball courts and tennis courts, and we've improved bathrooms throughout multiple parks to make them accessible. One location that we haven't been able to accomplish has been access to Red Arrow Beach. That's our #1 priority with this project, is access from the parking lot down to the beach and the water. Currently, there is some old cord walk there. We removed some of it for the sand sculpting event and put a beach mat in. It's not the exact, not the best way to solve that issue, but it kind of helped for that. But that was the biggest concern with the Sand Sculpting Festival, which brought about 8,000 people this year and last year to that beach, was access. It was difficult or almost impossible for anybody with a wheelchair or accessibility issues to get down to the beach. So with this project, we are looking to install walkways, permanent walkways from the parking lot, gradual slopes curving down to the beach, as well as a viewing platform along the existing asphalt path. That would be phase 1. Phase 1 could be a standalone project. It's not dependent on phase 2, the second $500,000. That is more allocated towards the boat launch and possible upgrades to the parking lot. Overall, that would be great, but the initial $500,000 could be standalone. We could get a finished product with proper beach access with that amount of money. Anything less than that, I don't think we would be able to create a finished product there. So, any questions?
Alderman Cummings, you had the floor. Do you want to ask any questions of staff or?
Thank you, Brock, for speaking on this. What does that viewing platform look like?
So-
you could describe it.
Yeah, so the viewing platform would be a bump out towards Lake Michigan from the existing asphalt path. It would be large enough that if we wanted to put our portable band shell on it, we could do that. We could park it there. We could have an event with our band shell. We could, it's large enough to have a band on site if we wanted to have seating along the existing grass path or up by the parking lot, viewing towards the lake, a band or an event. Otherwise, it could be used as just kind of a viewing platform of Lake Michigan. So wide enough to fit our band shell if we need it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for staff? Yes, Alderman Reckelberg.
Well, the gentleman that spoke before referred to where he saw where they etched it out, so to speak. I'm assuming that's what you're referring to the viewing platform a little bit. But how much is going to be etched out or whatever as far as to maybe lower the parking or making it? Because this winding trail you talk about to get down there, I mean, it may help the handicap and it may not, you know, if it's that long of a distance, so to speak, you know, and I know there's, when you talk about handicapped accessibility, there's a certain angle you have to be at, and if you're not at that angle, you're not handicapped accessible. So has any thought been given to what this gentleman brought up tonight as to reconfiguring that at all or not?
As far as cutting out, lowering the parking lot, is that?
Yeah, lowering the parking lot so that it wouldn't be such a drastic from the parking lot down to the beach. And I know when you do that, or if you attempt that, you've got to go the other direction, then up, so to speak, to where the baseball diamond is and the tennis courts and all of that. But has that been thought of or dreamed up as to maybe getting that down somehow or not?
Lowering the parking lot was not part of our initial plan. Basically, our plan was just to a gradual ramp down to our existing levels.
Yeah, that would accomplish the goal of getting it more accessible without having to do the major excavation, the switchback would.
Yeah, the switchback would be at the correct grades to make it accessible.
I just would wonder if you would look at what his suggestion was, what happened at this other location, would that make sense for us to even consider? Considering it doesn't really cost any money, you know, until you ask an engineer to put the fence over the paper. Or as we got earlier testimony, gosh sake, don't ask an attorney, because then the bill will really go up, so.
Sure, we have a consultant we have just started working with on the concept designs, and that's something we'll definitely discuss with them if that's an option or not.
I don't know if you recall, because I don't remember what park it was he visited, but I'm sure that, you know, if we knew that, you can look on the internet and get an idea as what they did, so, thank you.
Alderman Schley.
Thank you. I just want to clarify, you're talking about lowering the parking lot at Red Arrow? Literally lowering it?
Lowering it as at least a thought to look at as to getting where you park your vehicle to the beach a little bit more in proximity. For example, you go to Two Rivers, it's right there in front of you. I realize maybe we can't have that same situation here, but if we're gonna spend big money, let's do it right.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I was clear on what you were talking about. Dan, this question would be for you. In order to do something like that, it would have to be gradually lowered from both ends. So we're talking, how long would that section be? Like a block and a half?
I guess it would depend on how much we would want to lower it. I mean, that's,
Okay,
we'd have to look at it.
but it would
Like I-
probably everything would have to be removed and then, you know, regraded and repaired.
Yeah.
And let's just throw out a block. It's over 2 lanes wide. How much would a repaving project like on asphalt
boy.
cost?
It would be significant. It would be very significant.
Significant as in
Millions.
millions of dollars?
I mean, and again, I have not looked at this at all.
Okay, I'm not trying to discredit anybody. I'm trying to get out the numbers out in the open here. There are other areas of the country that have parking lots that are elevated over beaches. One of the largest is Florida, and if you go to just about anywhere in Florida, you'll see what they're using are switchbacks, because it's the most economical way to do it. They have their challenges down there too with money, and it's a much more economical way to do it. Sure, it might take a little bit longer to get down to the beach, but at least we're addressing the issue, and we're addressing it in a way that I think everybody can live with financially. That's all I wanted to get out there, was just the cost prohibitiveness. I mean, you know, and I do, by the way, I do want to say, I'm sorry that you were insulted by my comment, but there are veterans who I've talked to who are insulted by the idea that we're taking a park that's in memory of the Red Arrow Division, and the only park that's being proposed for money, and pulling all the funds for that park, okay? So, again, I just wanted to bring to light what the cost of trying to move the parking lot would be, as opposed to switchbacks. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff while they're up here? We'll open it up for general comments then after. Yeah, Alderman Vanderken.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate your apology, President Schley. My question here is, this is ultimately $500,000 now and at least $500,000 next year, so all the Reckler's comments is $1 million project. And right now we have, you know, as you said, concepts of a plan. Do we have any, to me, that doesn't equal out to $1 million project. Is there any other itemized items you guys would have that would, I guess, justify such a price tag?
Sure, we do have an itemized cost estimate for this project. We won't know exact costs until it's bid, but.
Are you asking for some kind of other things they'd be doing? Just to.
Correct, yeah, because I'm not seeing how that's going to cost $1 million to the tax.
Right. So if you could just kind of go through, because we had the hand and foot washing right station that would be in there, right? Is that things you're asking about?
I
Addition?
can run down quick, like the list.
I just want
I
to,
mean, it doesn't have to be especially long, just like any like
Yeah,
larger
I just wanna make
itemized
sure that's
items
what you're
that you can,
yeah, if you could just go through, other than accessibility and parking lot, like you mentioned, is there any other things that are, the platform we just heard?
Yeah, so I guess, I mean, there's electrical, there's plumbing for the shower, there's, I mean, just final engineering costs. We had 30,000 budgeted for through capital last year to get initial engineering done and concept designs. Mobilization, that's gonna be $20,000. Construction staking, 10,000. Just excavation, the path alone, asphalt is 86,000. The gravel for the project's gonna be about 30,000. I mean, it just adds up. It's nothing crazy, nothing expansive, I guess. The concrete shower pad, I mean, that's fairly small, 1,500, but shower and plumbing, that's $10,000 right there.
all right, thank you.
Thank you. Sure. Yeah, Alderman Bolt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Rock, this for you. You mentioned two phases. Okay, the first phase is the one that's cleaning it up. The second phase, which would be the second $500,000, would then include the boat launches and stuff like that. But you didn't have an exact detail because the prices are still out there. Correct?
Yeah.
Is my understanding? The first phase is to clean up the walkway, make it accessible, let's have fun this year. The second portion of the $500,000, what they wrap together, the million, would be the boat launch and the other accessible item, or other items, correct?
Yeah, so the second phase that we have on our sheet would include the boat launch, some concrete seating areas, and parking lot improvements, which would be basically little islands that come out to narrow the parking lot, possibly opening the back end of that parking lot to Green Street and turning into kind of like a one-way through. We wouldn't want a two-way there because we don't want kids racing out of the school, but, you know, two-way to begin and then one-way past the curve. Just things that we were looking at as possibilities, but we knew that would be kind of down the road, so we don't have exact numbers for phase two or anything. And like I mentioned, phase two is not, phase one wouldn't be dependent on phase two. We would have a finished product after phase one if budgets don't come in next year. Which would be our biggest concern with that.
That was my clarification, that the $500,000, we're getting a finished project. We'd address the second phase
Yeah.
next year.
And if I could add also, the second phase with Brock mentioned the narrowing up the roadway there. A lot of that would be done in order to improve safety, basically to slow people down.
Yep, got it.
There's been a history of cars kind of racing through there, so that's why he said if we were to open it up and make it kind of a through street, we would have to implement those things in order to make it safe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff? All right, thank you. Appreciate it. We will bring it back to the council now. The motion to amend is to remove that $500,000 from borrowing with the specific numbers that Alderman Norrell had. The motion is to remove. Is there any further discussion? All right, then seeing none, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Can we see the ayes, please? So we have Debates, Norrell, Reckelberg, and Vanderkin. So the motion fails 4-6. So that money would remain in the budget as of right now. Further, so now we will open it up to the budget as is, since nothing has been amended. Alderman Reckelberg.
Yes, I move to amend the City of Manitowoc's 2025 proposed budget as follows. Item 1, increase interest and dividend income in the treasurer's budget from the $550 that is shown to the $750. And I list the account number there in the detail which was attached to your agenda. It basically increases income in the general fund by $200,000, that move. Secondly, I would decrease the retirement/termination payout in the contingencies area. I listed the account number, and there is $100,000 there. I would recommend zero, as the departmental budgets have funds budgeted for the known and the expected retirements. This is simply a redundancy that doesn't need to be there. And third, decrease the other capital improvements in the community development budget account for 250 and make it 0, and that decreases expenses in the general fund by 250. Using the above amendments saves $550,000 in the general fund, and my motion would include moving that 550 from the general fund to the capital projects fund, which then reduces borrowing by 550.
That is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Norrell. Discussion on the motion. Alderman Ruckleberg, you have the floor.
Yeah, I brought this up in finance about the interest income. 2 years ago, I suggested an increase, and I asked for an increase of X amount of dollars, let's say, and our finance director came back at the next meeting and increased it even more than what the increase was that I had asked for, which I got a little mad about that because I thought mine was a very realistic number at the time, and I thought maybe he was pushing it a little bit. But as it ended up, if you looked at the audit report, the actual number came in extremely above even his number. The number that appears in the budget, considering the amount of money that the city invests in current interest rates now, unless something hits the petunia, it's the 750 that I'm asking for that number to be is certainly very realistic. And I hadn't heard back from our finance director that says, well, I got bad news because I heard this is where interest rates are going. He didn't contact me, so I'm assuming that he's comfortable with that number being that number. At least he didn't say, well, let's make it 850. So with respect to the contingencies, like I said, there is money already budgeted for payouts. This is simply a contingency that doesn't need to exist. That's $100,000 of tax levy money. The capital improvements I brought up before, and I understand. The thing of it is with that, I looked at all the detail that makes up that 250, and the 3 areas in question I drove. The sidewalks in those 3 areas are good. There's nothing wrong with it where any of those sidewalks need to be replaced or patched or otherwise. There are currently shrubs on a couple of the parking lots. I don't see where adding trees and flowers at those locations are going to be money well spent at this stage of the game. The other thing is, on one of the streets, 2 years from now, we're gonna be tearing it up and replacing it. You wanna put in new light fixtures, which is what some of the work is, and the other things, why don't you wait? I certainly would be more favorable to, you rip up a street and you replace it, then you do the sidewalks and the other things. I mean, currently, right now, just last month, we signed paperwork and approved at finance. There are currently 49 ornamental lights that are yet to go up. Let's get the 49 lights up on the other streets that, Chicago and Buffalo and York Street and Maritime Drive. Why don't we get those up first before we worry about buying and paying and doing more street lights that it isn't gonna go up for 2 to 3 years, is my understanding, because of the lag time. So that's my reasoning for my motion to amend. And like I said, it brings the borrowing down by 550. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Alderman Bry next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I applaud Alderman Reckelberg as well for making the fiscal impact study perfect as well. And to be honest with you, the 3 original parts of your motion, I might be able to support. You're reducing the levy, and especially the first one, I guess you can take a gamble or spin the wheel or whatever analogy we use up here to do that. But when you used it to take away from the borrowing portion of it, that's where you lost me. Not saying we shouldn't reduce debt, but I go once again, and I mentioned before in our first part of the discussion, and then Alderman Sikowitz reiterated, is that even though we have to pay for borrowing in the future, the borrowing for this year's budget does not affect the tax levy for 2025. So I just want to reiterate that. So if eventually we reconsider some of the motions outside of this one, I might actually support them. I guess I'll hear what people have to say, but as of right now, I will not support this amendment. Thank you again, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I have Alderman Sitkowitz next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To the first part of your motion, Alder Reckleberg, the interest income. We had a pretty good discussion at finance with the finance director about how the number of 550 came about. And it was in consultation between the finance director and our investment handlers to come up with what's a realistic number for interest income. Now, I agree, I'd like to see it at 750, I'd like to see it at 850, 950, $1 million, whatever number we want to pull out. But how did you determine the 750 as a reasonable number when our finance director and our financial handlers are telling us that this is a reasonable number? And if your number is reasonable, why wouldn't the finance director and mayor want to have the extra income in the budget and present it to us that way? Because we have always been looking for revenue, and interest income is revenue. So I'm not sure why we would be ultra conservative unless it's a true realistic number at that 550.
Alderman Reckleberg, I'll allow you to respond since he directly asked you.
I asked what our average investment balance is. Let's say it's $15-16 million. The current interest rate, average interest rate that we're doing, multiply that out and we're over 750. The other thing is the investment people take into consideration, and I've explained this a number of times, they use the right up to market or right down to market at year end. It is a required journal entry under GASB and GAAP, and that if your investment holdings market value is less, you write it down to that market value. If it's up, you would write it up to that. That entry goes on the interest income line item. I've always handled it separately at the county, and most of my counterparts handle it separately, where you see both numbers. Here's what you really made in interest income, and here's either the write-up or the write-down to market, and you add those two together, that's what they end up putting in the footnote. Now, the write-up and the write-down to market, as I explained before, if you hold your investment to maturity, it doesn't matter what the write-up or write-down is. It's what you're going to get based on the face value. So you could have a $500,000 write-down, but if those investments are held to maturity, you never realize that $500,000 deficit. You never do. It disappears when you hold it to maturity. If you were going to have a big markup, if you know that ahead of time, you're going to get rid of those investments and then actually have a realized gain as opposed to a write-down. If it's a write-down, hold it to maturity and those numbers go away. And like I said, when I was doing the books for the county and a lot of my counterparts, they always showed those two numbers separately so you knew what you're dealing with. I'm dealing with the interest income based on the money that's invested and the interest rates that he's getting. And I felt comfortable at 750. And you're right. If you didn't like this, what did I do a couple years ago? How many pages did I have handouts for? 12, 13, 14 pages of handouts where I went through the budget. You want to know? There's a lot of things in here too. I could have come up with another 10 pages of You can add 5,000 here and add 10,000 there, subtract 2,000 there. Yeah, it's overly conservative. And I'm not being overly liberal saying, pushing it to the extreme. I want my numbers to be as accurate. One of the things is our fund balance applied is 3.5 million. And they gave us a lot of documentation on why they felt using 3.5 million of our general fund is justified.
This was specific to the motion.
Yeah, I allowed him to respond directly to you, so that's why he's been looking at you, but,
That's
yeah.
fine.
Yeah, no, you're explaining your rationale. It's your motion, it's your rationale. So Alderman Sikowitz, though, you still do have the floor.
Well, then maybe to the second point of my question to Alder Reckleberg is why wouldn't our finance director and mayor and the financial consultants have a higher number if, I guess, Sean, if you could come up and kind of walk through that process again. Because, yeah, it's great if we realize those in the dollars as interest income, but there's a, if it hits the petunia, we take it in the shorts.
Sure, yeah. So to kind of just reiterate or re-explain, educate to everyone. So to a couple different data facts. So last year's budget was 2024's budget. So at that time, to Alder Reckleberg saying it was 150 originally, 150,000 coming off of prior year's experience. So to that point, we did bump it up to 500, and the year hasn't ended yet, so we don't know where interest is going to end up, but we are looking more positive. Prior to that, just to kind of full circle of how did we come up with the 550 for 2025. If we rewind back in 2022, kind of along the lines of the requirements we are to make for adjustments and the interest income that actually happened, we actually had a negative 950,000 in interest income in 2022. So that was meaning that we had to actually supplant and balance out the budget with fund balance, assuming all things were equal. So roll forward to 23, roll forward to 25, and now, or to 24, I apologize, now we're at 25. And the norm, in at least my experience, historically, it goes in a 3-year cycle, +2 with the the unknown at the time of setting the budget of the election status, or as we've heard through the federal news lines that potential rate cuts, at least up to anywhere from 6 to 8, depending on which article you read, on 2 right now. But all that combined just kind of left to having the interest income being at 550,000, one, to be a little conservative. It's an item as a revenue you never want to overestimate, or more importantly, overpromise, because if all things come in and we put it, I'm just going to speak, if we put it at that 700,000 and we don't reach 700,000, let's say we get 500, that's 200,000 we got to come from somewhere else. So assuming all revenue and expenses were accurate for the entire year of 25, where's that going to come from to balance out your budget? Fund balance. As you know, we have a fund balance that's conservative, but also utilizing it to keep down our expenses, the overall expense impact on the levy. So that would just further exemplify the amount we need to use. To the rationale of where did this come from? So we do have a number of 2 core investments, the firms that we use to put it in there. The one largest one is carries around a cash balance of 16 million. And that person we've had a long-standing relationship with for the last decade plus, asked this individual what their thoughts was just based on that portfolio. And they came back with some analysis of it'd be around 350,000 would be a conservative amount for interest income. So you factor it in on all your other balances we have as well, because we do have a money market, we do have some CDs. We're putting in very conservative investments on there. So that all loomed together was 550, where I would still, in front of everyone right now, would still stand. That would be my recommendation, to keep it at that amount. There are, yes, some swings depending on how the market plays out and the accounting adjustments that are required, which Alder Reckleberg was referring to as what we call mark-to-market. So that's the kind of a little bit of the background, a little bit of the education, and where it landed to why it's proposed in front of you as the proposed interest income.
Okay, thank you very much for the explanation. So I mean, I can't support the increase. I would hope that it comes that way, Alder Reckleberg, but I think you're playing with a money press, and I don't like budgeting that way. The second point on
Can I
your-
ask, just since Sean is here, I do have a question.
Sure.
Thank you for allowing me. Yeah, since Sean is up here and on this specific subject, if we can focus on this if there are questions. But Sean, please refresh my memory too, because looking at years past data, that also included millions of dollars that we had invested from wastewater that we took and used as interest income. Correct.
Thank you for,
So when I looked at it also, now all that money has been transferred to Manitowoc Public Utilities, as you're aware. We lost all that extra interest income that we would have had. So also one thing I looked at when I looked at years previous, we lost millions of dollars that we could have collected interest income. Correct, Sean?
correct.
Thank you. So that's another just a rationale of why I felt comfortable with that number too. Alderman Sikowitz, you still do have the floor, but are there any questions
I would
for
yield if somebody else has questions for Sean to this point.
this specific point? Correct. Well, interest income. Alderman Bry.
Well, I guess I was hoping not to just interest income, but the entire motion, because I want to.
Well, I'm going to get to that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, then I'll hold off, but thank you.
I just want to, since we're on the subject.
Because Sean's up here, that's why I wanted to talk.
Oh, he'll stay now, but
Thank
if
you.
there's questions on the interest income portion of this motion, let's take care of that now. Alderman Reckelberg.
Yeah, you mentioned the 900,000 negative number somewhere in there. Once again, that also included your mark to market. And like I said, as long as you hold your investments to maturity, it doesn't really matter. And even if it's a negative number, like you said, and like you said, it goes against fund balance, but it's just a paper entry. It's on paper and January 1st, and as those investments come in, it's all reversed. So, looking at the numbers, I'm looking at the 23 audited number. You budgeted like 173. What's the number that came in audited? $1.9 million almost. So you budgeted 174 and we ended up, now granted, that includes the right to the market adjustment. That's why I would always record it and show it separately but if you consolidate the number, we budgeted for 173 and we got $1.89 million on the books. And like I said, I looked at his number. I mean, I wouldn't be suggesting that if I didn't think it would be true. And I mean, I've got 40 years of experience doing this, so I feel comfortable in that number. If you don't want to agree, that's fine.
All right. Any other discussion on interest income part of the motion? If not, Alderman Sikowitz, you still have the floor then.
Okay, and then just to point two here for the motion to decrease the retirement payouts from $100,000 to zero. We have consistently drawn down that account. A couple years ago, we were budgeting $300,000 for the retirements of unplanned retirements and termination payouts. That was due to a lot of our employees who were pre-Act 10, had larger banks that would be paid out, but as we've had less and less employees who are employed with the city now who were pre-Act 10, the need for those payouts have gone down dramatically, and that's why we're at $100,000. So if we went with this budget amendment to reduce that by $100,000, and Alder Reckleberg stated that we budget for it within the departments, I'm not actually sure that we do. That's why we have the contingency for the unanticipated retirements. I believe we budget for anticipated retirements. Can you?
Yeah, sure, certainly, yep, absolutely. So historically, it was at 300,000, but we did reduce it, more so because that used to be the account that all retirements or terminations, voluntary, involuntary, expected or unexpected, kind of was the catch-all there. So we did reallocated it for the departments to have a better control and actually turn better grasp on what is coming and hitting their budget. So now, yes, it's go back to like the process. When we start the memo back in July, one of the first things is that we ask all the departments to go out and try to, take a census of their employees of like who, that are maybe going to retire, and then ultimately submit those. And it's not holding anything there, but we run the payouts because of we have payouts on our amounts, whether it be various union payouts or non-union on that end. And we do budget those based on the information at that time, which is in August, of what the anticipated retirements. And the intent of that contingency, the 100,000, is to cover anyone that would unexpectedly retire or terminate throughout the year, and cover basically lessen the burden or fulfill the burden of those unexpected retirements and terminations.
So this fund is similar to some of our other contingencies funds that we have throughout the city. For example, the snow removal fund. So we have an extra $100,000 set aside for if we have a bad winter, that we draw those funds down. In a good winters, we cap that $100,000 and replenish those. So this is similar to that process that we use throughout the city in many departments.
Similar to the fundamentals of it, it is a static budget line number. It does not roll forward to an assigned fund balance at the end of the year, but it's there as to have the budgeted expense and then to be able to offset it with either some kind of shared or state revenue or other revenues on that end to prevent from providing any kind of distress to the general fund for those unknowns.
So if there were unknowns and this was at zero, we'd be using fund balance to do that.
If
Okay.
if every expense and revenue came in as is, and we did not have this, and 5 people retired unexpectedly next year, the city's fund balance would have to supplant that.
Okay. I would yield back to if there's any points on number 2.
Yeah, Alderman Norrell.
So just on this, Sean, I know you included a report in our packet, and I see there were 18 employees budgeted to retire in 2025, 9 of those in police and fire.
Sir.
And in the budget packet through June 30, 2024, 0 have retired unexpectedly. Have there been any others that have, since June 30th when this packet was presented till now, have we had any unexpected retirements in 2024?
Not that I can recall or
Okay.
that I'm aware of, but I can definitely follow up with the payroll department.
Okay, and knowing that police and fire are probably higher payouts than others, like when I look at this and just do the simple math on the payouts on your budget or in the budgeted departments, we'd have to have over 7 employees retired to have $100,000 used up in that budget. Based on my math, I mean, it's just over 7. So, but that, as your last comment was, every expense and every revenue would have to come in order to have to use the fund balance to cover this. Meaning if a department was under budget, it would just be in their budget, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
That's why to reiterate, that's, so from a 0, or if you see a 0, it's either it was the reduction in expenses or the influx of revenue of why there would be a 0 as of 6/30 of '24.
No, I guess my question is, in 2025, if this $100,000 is removed and somebody retires unexpectedly in a department, that department would have to hit their budget on the penny for fund balance to be used again. That's just my question.
Yes, the first, it would be yes, because first we go to the departments and ask if they can reduce expenses to cover that unexpected retirement.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this point? Seeing none then, Alderman Sitkowitz, you still have the floor.
Thank you. And then point 3 in Alder Recklenberg's motion was to decrease capital improvements in the community development budget account by $250,000 to 0. And then to decrease expenses in the general fund by $250,000. Again, historically, this budget line has been at $500,000, $500,000 for downtown improvements. One of the things I hear from constituents all the time is how they can't believe the difference in downtown in the last 10 years. That it's transformed into something that was different than they remember. When I have classmates come back, they can't believe the difference in downtown and everything that's been invested in there. So I was disappointed this year in the budget to see that we went from $500,000 to cut it in half to $250,000. But understanding that budgets are tight, it was nice to see that we still had some investment into downtown. Maybe not at the levels that we were accustomed to, or have the impact that we're hoping it to, but I can tell you that the $250,000 is going to have a much larger impact downtown than $0. And if we want to keep the momentum of downtown, I'm not sure why we would just wash our hands of it and walk away and say it's good enough. I haven't heard, as good as it is in the momentum down there, you have to keep moving forward on that momentum. And I can't see a reason why we would walk away from downtown and not invest $250,000 into streetscape, making it more walkable and appealing to the eye. I think that's the largest takeaway for downtown, is that we have storefronts that are full. Could they be more full? Absolutely. But we need to do things to continue and expand downtown from a few blocks to many blocks. And I think just, it's an easy thing to cut, because maybe it's in your district, maybe it's not. Maybe you hear some people that don't like downtown, or it's not the way it used to be. Well, that's actually a good thing that downtown isn't the way it used to be. So I'm fully supportive of increasing this, or keeping it at $250,000. I'd actually look for ways to increase it back to the 500, but I didn't see that being palatable this year. So I'm not gonna, that's the one deal breaker probably in this motion, is that, but I would yield back if anybody has anything on point 3 here.
Yes, any further discussion? Alderman Cummings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, on point 3, as a representative of downtown, I do not want to see the funding be cut, and I agree with Alder Sickwitz's comments on that.
Thank you. Any further, so Alderman Sickowitz, are you done with all of your comments, or can?
No, but I'll wrap it up on point 4 here.
Okay, go, sorry, anything further on the $250,000, that's a motion to remove from the budget for downtown? Further discussion on that? Alderman Reckelberg.
I would just like to clarify so that people think I'm poo-hooing the downtown area. I moved for this removal. I supported all the roads, whether they're in my district or not. In fact, I jumped on board my first year when Alderman Sickowitz was concerned about a lot of our alleyways, thank you very much. I always count on you to help me out. On the alleyways, and there were 13 of them, and I had suggested back then that we take at least 3 of them each year, and in 4 years, we'll have touched all of the alleyways and gotten them back to snuff. And I supported that all the way. And I don't have any alleyways in my district, but then again, if there's a road project in my district, a street, and it's Payzer rated at, let's say, 4, and a street comes up that goes from 3 to 2, I certainly would support switching road projects from mine in my district to the one that's in 2, because that is the one that's needed in repair. And so while I asked for this to be removed, there was a reason, and the reason was to try to make the mayor an honest man, and that was to get our debt so that the principal payments that we are making equal the amount of principal that we're borrowing, and that's not the case. Even with my motion, we're a little short. But as I had mentioned to our planning director, I said, it's not that I don't support what's going on down there, but I would rather see it perhaps go a little slower at times. I mean, we've spent millions of dollars down there through the TIF districts with the road improvements and this. And like I said, we've currently got 54 ornamental lights that are waiting to go up down there. This would just add more. So I just wanted to assure you that I'm not cutting them off saying, don't ever bring this back. It's just, when you get older, you move a little slower, as that lady said. Hey, she's worried about her rent. And I am just, Alder Bry brought it up exactly. All these moves do not affect the tax rate or the levy. It simply affects the amount that we're borrowing, but that affects the levy and the rate moving forward after this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the 250 for downtown? All right, Alderman Sikowitz, you still have the floor.
Yep, and just to, I'll wrap up and be brief here, you know, because Alder Reckleberg made my point for me on it, that last comment was, when we were at finance, and I take Alder Reckleberg at his word, that when he started the finance deliberations, he talked about a lady that he met in his district and wanted tax relief. And I completely agree with that and understand that. None of these moves create tax relief. None of them reduce the levy, which is what the tax bill is based off of. It is reducing the borrowing, but it is not directly impacting the tax bill that a constituent is going to receive in 2025, or for 2025. So while I understand that that's a concern, and it is, I don't like my tax bill when it comes in the mail either, but these moves aren't affecting that. They're playing a little bit of a shell game with the borrowing and some of the proposed increases in revenue. The other thing is, we've worked really hard as a council over the last, well, my time, at least a dozen years, of putting items into what the bucket I called was pay-as-you-go, where we took items that we had previously borrowed and moved them to the general fund. One of those items is the downtown improvements. We used to borrow for those, and we took that $500,000 out of borrowing and paid for it up front. So to cut it really takes a step backwards of paying for things up front. So I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to support the motions.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion to amend, which again is Alderman Reckleberg's motion to amend with his various items. Alderman Reckleberg.
I don't mean to disagree with Alder Sikowitz, but you talk about pay-as-you-go. This actually, if you were to adopt all three of these, actually you are paying $550 more as you go, as opposed to borrowing it. So this is a definite pay-as-you-go. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion to amend. Does anyone need it reread? Or we're all understanding what the motion is? Okay, seeing no other discussion on the motion to amend, all those in favor? Opposed?
Nay.
Can we see the ayes, please? Debates, Norrell, Reckleberg, and Vanderkin. So the motion fails 4-6. So that remains as is as well. We're back now to the budget as a whole. Further discussion on the budget. Seeing none then, the motion is to approve the budget. Yes, there has, yeah. Motion to approve the budget as recommended by the Finance Committee. Alderman Reckleberg?
Well, if that's the case, then I would like to, the first item on my list, to increase the interest and dividend income by that $200,000, which, like I said, it is a good number, and instead of moving that to reduce the debt, I'm going to suggest that the offset to increasing the revenue would be to decrease the general fund tax levy by $200,000.
Okay, so you would be you're making a motion to reduce the levy by $200,000 by increasing the interest income revenue?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, so there's a motion. Is there a second? Motion and second by Vanderkin. Discussion. Alderman Bry.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. And as I mentioned in the first portion of your first amendment, Alderman Reckleberg, I might support that. And even though we did talk about this at Finance Committee, having our Finance Director, Sean, speak on it, reiterated the reason why I won't support it. In the past, actually for this budget, I know we had talked about it last year in 2023 for the 2024 budget, the budget that we just are coming to an end with. We did talk about it, and we did increase it by several $100,000, if I remember correctly. I thought we bumped it up a little bit. Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought we did. But to do it this time would be fiscally irresponsible, so I will not support the amendment. Thank you.
Further, Alderman Reckleberg, just want to make sure that we're clear for the minutes and everything. So on the levy sheet, you would be recommending the general fund reduced from 8.8 million to 8.6 million in the levy, the general fund portion of that?
Yes, that's what would happen.
Correct, Sean, you understand that too? Okay, just want to make sure we're all on the same page, that that's where the money or the motion is focused on. Further discussion on the motion to amend. Alderman Sitkowitz.
Yeah, for the reasons stated earlier, this seems like a number that is while I respect Alder Reckleberg's opinion, I also respect our finance director's opinion and the staff and the resources that he uses to put forward a number. And again, the question that I asked was never answered. If this was a attainable number and we were searching for revenue, the mayor and finance director would be all over this to support increasing this revenue line. And we heard our finance director say that he stands by the number that's presented in the budget, and so do I. We're not the school district that can pass, large referendums for operation. We're not the county who can pass sales taxes to cover up past mistakes. We have responsible budgets, and we're going to stick to doing responsible budgets in the city of Manitowoc. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion to amend. Seeing none then, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Can we see the ayes? The motion, okay, so debates, Cummings, Norrell, Reckelberg, and Vanderkin. So the motion is 5-5. I will break the tie, and I will vote with the nays. So the motion fails 6-5. Or 5-6 with the nays. We're back to the budget as recommended by the Finance Committee. Any further discussion? Seeing none then, all those in favor of the budget as presented?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Can we see the nays? Debates, Norrell, Reckelberg, and Vanderkin, so the motion to adopt the budget passes 6-4. That is all the discussion we have for the budget. Thank you, Sean, for being up here. The budget is adopted. We'll move then to the rest of the Finance Committee agenda.
1973, which is a resolution establishing special events application fee schedule for 2025. Committee returns same, recommending to adopt the resolution.
What's your pleasure on this resolution?
Move for the adoption of the resolution, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously.
Document 1974 is a resolution authorizing a 2024 WEDC Vibrant Spaces Grant application for Maritime Plaza and Heritage Garden. Committee returns same, recommending to adopt the resolution.
What's your pleasure on this resolution?
Move for the adoption of the resolution, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously.
Document 1977 is an ordinance to amend Section 11.130, direct sellers and direct purchasers. Committee returns same, recommending to adopt the ordinance.
What's your pleasure on this ordinance?
Move for the adoption of the ordinance, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously.
Document 1978 is a resolution for Manitowoc Public Utilities for ornamental lighting at York and Maritime. Committee returns same, recommending to adopt the resolution.
What's your pleasure on this resolution?
Move for the adoption of the resolution, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion?
Those extra light bulbs, Alderman Reckelberg?
Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously.
Document 1979 is a resolution from Manitowoc Public Utilities for ornamental lighting at Chicago and Buffalo. Committee returns same, recommending to adopt the resolution.
What's your pleasure on this resolution?
Move for the adoption of the resolution, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously.
Document 1983 is a discussion on Manitowoc Place Development Agreement. Committee returns same, recommending to direct staff to negotiate an amendment to the original agreement for Common Council review and action.
What's your pleasure on this report?
Move for the adoption of the committee's report, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion?
Just quickly, Mr. Mayor, just for informational purposes when the discussion is going on, the building is hopefully going to be sold to a local owner who has local interests here, has other interests in this area. So it looks like it's good. He'll be discussing it with Adam in the department up there. We're negotiating. I thought it was the loan portion, the interest portion, correct? If
Yeah,
our
Adam,
community
if you
develop-
want to.
Right.
Otherwise, yeah, it was a discussion on when this first agreement happened with the previous, there was a $500,000
Our
loan.
loan, when it was gonna be paid for, and we just have to essentially get that date reiterated with the new owner, correct?
Right. It did say, the agreement said that if it ever sold, that had to be paid back immediately. This is just continuing that
Right.
500 with the new owner.
Correct.
Who has agreed to take that on through the life, which is 2030.
4, I thought, if I remember.
Yeah, so, yeah, that is in there and that remains the same as it always was, just under the new owner. Any further question? Oh, sorry, Adam, I didn't want to steal your thunder. Further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously.
Document 1986 is a resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of up to $13,774,848 sewerage system revenue bonds, Series 2024, and providing for other details and covenants with respect thereto, and approval of related $15,874,848 financial assistance agreement. Committee returns same, recommending to adopt the resolution.
Council, your pleasure on this resolution.
Move for the adoption of the resolution, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously.
Document 1987 is a resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of up to $1,142,000 taxable private LSL replacement loan program revenue bonds, Series 2024A, and providing for other details and covenants with respect thereto, and approval of related, excuse me, $4,298,000 financial assistance agreement. Committee return same, recommending to adopt the resolution.
Council, your pleasure on this resolution.
Move for the adoption of the resolution, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Document 1988 is a resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of up to $670,783 taxable private LSL replacement loan program revenue bonds, Series 2024B, and providing for all other details and covenants with respect thereto, and approval of related $1,304,567 financial assistance agreement. Committee returns same, recommending to adopt the resolution.
Council, your pleasure on this resolution.
Move for the adoption of the resolution, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously.
Document 2030 is a tax levy certification from Manitowoc County for fiscal year 2025. Committee returns same, recommending to accept and place on file.
Council, your pleasure on this report.
Move for the adoption of the committee's report, Mr.
Second.
Mayor.
Motion and second. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Anything else, Alderman Bry?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, our next Finance Committee meeting will be this Tuesday, December 7th, here in the Common Council chambers at 5:30 PM. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move then to the Personnel Committee. Alderman Eric Sitkowitz is chair.
Extensive list of documents.
We have document 2018, Manitowoc Professional Firefighters International Association of Firefighters Local 368, request to arbitrate grievances, denial of secondary employment as legitimate reason. Committee returns same, recommending to accept and place on file.
Council, your pleasure on this report.
Move for the adoption of the committee's report, Mr. Mayor.
Second. Motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Anything else, Alderman Sitkowitz?
That completes our business for this evening. Our next scheduled Personnel Committee meeting will be Monday, December 2nd at 5:30 here in council chambers. But then I also, since I have the floor, wanted to mention that the next Room Tax Commission meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, December 3rd at 4:30, right prior to finance. So I know that there's some interest in when the the Room Tax Commission is meeting about the MAVCB, and that will be Tuesday, December 3rd.
Thank you. We'll move then to the Public Infrastructure Committee, and Alderman Mike Cummings is chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The clerk has the documents.
Document 1990 is the proposed 2025 to 2030 road project plan. Committee returns same, recommending approval.
Council, your pleasure on this report.
Move for the adoption of the committee report, Mr. Mayor.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously.
Document 1992 is a resolution for 2025 Department of Public Infrastructure fee schedule. Committee returns same, recommending approval.
Council, your pleasure on this report or resolution.
Move for the adoption of the committee report, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously.
Document 2023 is appeal for noxious weed cutting assessment for property located at 1015 Dewey Street. Committee returns same, recommending to deny the appeal.
Council, your pleasure on this report.
Move for the adoption of the committee report, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion and second, discussion. I did have this sent to here because typically the Board of Public Works handles these individually. But this one, the property owner, the one who was appealing, didn't show up to the meeting, so wanted to give at least another opportunity or another week or so to say anything. I don't know if the individual's here. Yeah, okay. So it's up to council if you want to hear from the individual who is appealing or not, but that's why I brought it here, is because wasn't at Board of Public Works. And yeah, Alderman Reckelberg.
Well, Mr. Mayor, if that's why you brought it here and the gentleman is here, I would move to allow him to speak if that's your wishes.
Yep, no, that's what I want, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, if you want to just come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record, please. And then just the rationale for your request. Oh, is the green light on? No. Just push the button. Yep, there you go, thank you.
My name is Devin Van Harms. I live at 1015 Dewey Street, and my rationale on it is outside of getting 2 pictures and having about 3 or 4 times the area get hit by their weed whacker, I'm assuming, they managed to go and cut down some of my perennial flowers and all of my herb garden that was still left at that time, which I kind of looked at prices that were at grocery stores for the herbs and amounted to considerable sum by itself. Not as much as the invoice, but still.
Is there any questions from the council? Yeah, in this case, we'll allow, because this isn't public input, this is specific to an agenda item, since we had the motion to allow that we can ask, absolutely. Alderman Schley.
I'll ask a question. You were notified by the city that the weeds need to be removed before they came and cut, correct?
I did not get a notice on my door. I did get something about particular weeds. They were talking about invasive ones, which I assumed were the thistles I removed over a month beforehand.
But you never contacted anybody from the city to clarify after you were warned?
They said they would go and see about if there were any weeds, and then they would send somebody there about 30 days after it said on the paperwork. And then 2 weeks after that 30-day mark should have happened, I had someone show up and cut down my weeds and did the neighbors next to me at the same day.
That wasn't my question. My question was, when they sent you the notice and you thought it was about some, I believe you said thistles, did you contact the city to make sure that you were correct?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I didn't assume wildflowers were invasive.
I don't think anybody thinks wildflowers are invasive except I can't think of that one. Oh, gosh, what was it called? Purple, whatever it was. It's an invasive weed. It looks like a flower, but it's not. Anyway, that was the answer to my question. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the council? Devin, do you have anything else you'd like to add? Again, we have all the pictures and everything too, so that's what everyone's looking at. just
Yeah,
so you're
they
aware.
only sent me 2 of them. So I don't know how much more they got.
We have a few here, a bunch of befores, 5 or 6, but.
So-
Sorry, yeah, Alderman Cummings.
Sorry, thank you. So you mentioned a herb garden. Did you have the herb garden on the city part of the property, which
No,
is
that was
between the road and the walkway?
They got a picture of a circular patch surrounded by cement that had chives and green onions I can see on it, and some mint as well. About half of my chives are there. Most of them end up spreading into cracks on my brick patio I have, and I just let them grow because I like chives. They're tasty. I had like 2.5 pounds of chives that got chopped down.
Yeah, I see that. So just for the council to be aware, and Devin, so these complaints these weed violations are complaint-based. It's not the city going around and looking. It's anonymous complaint-based in most cases. So that's when we go out and look, is when we receive a complaint about this. So. And in full transparency, the Board of Public Works does consider people showing up and making a case. And if there's reasons above and beyond or whatever that person couldn't get to cutting the grass, we've had homes that have sold in previous and other rationale of how people like their yards to look. The Board of Public Works has rescinded these violations in the past for different reasons, just full transparency as well. Alderman Cummings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, and I have actually watched the videos of the Board of Public Works. Just, that's what I do, I guess.
Fun.
Just for fun. Yeah, kind of.
Bless you.
Right. But anyway, so I have noticed on there that you have waived the fee in the condition that if it does present itself again, then that waiver will automatically not be granted. And then, so with that, since he is here, I would like to actually make that motion then, that we would waive the fee, but then in the future, if this ever does occur again, then that would not be considered for the waiver of a fee.
I'll second that.
Okay, so this is technically an amendment to the motion. I heard Alderman Norrell right there, he was chomping at the bit. So this is technically an amendment to the motion. The motion was to deny the request. So this would be adding just that language of, it will be, the fee will be waived for this time unless, and if in the future this happens again, the property owner waives their right to appeal again. Everyone understand? Again, that's an amendment. We're gonna have to bring that back to the main motion after this, but. Alderman Bry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess for clarification from the city attorney, I have no problem waiving the fee, I guess, but the question remains is for, I guess in perpetuity, they'd have no ability to appeal to the Board of Public Works on this issue once again. Is that even legal to say it because you're taking away the rights of an appeal? Even though it's in the form of a motion, it's in a sense going over an ordinance?
So when we do this at the Board of Public Works, we have more of a back and forth with the homeowner, property owner, and the property owner agrees to that on the record.
Okay.
If this property owner were to agree to it, we could enforce it. We can't just
Okay.
take away the ordinance.
Right.
So.
Okay, all right, thank you, I appreciate that. Like, I'll support it gladly, but I just wanted that question about the ordinance portion of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Cummings to the amendment.
Should we ask him right away if he's gonna agree to it?
If you'd like to, sure.
Would
Do
you-
you understand what the motion was here?
Yeah, the motion was that I would go and get this this invoice waived for this time, and as long as it didn't happen again, I would waive the rights of the able to go and say, I don't want to have to pay this.
To do what you're doing here,
Yeah.
correct? Yeah.
I guess, do you agree to that or not?
I agree to that.
Okay.
There you go. Now you can rewatch this video too when you're bored. Okay, so again, we're on the amendment. Any further discussions on the amendment? Not all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Now that is a part of the main motion. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. So it is waived. You'll get a notice of that, and you'll also get a notice of future, like we just talked, okay?
You want me to hit the button?
No, you're good. Thank you, though. All right. Next, anything else, Alderman Cummings? That's the last on your agenda?
That does conclude our business today, Mr. Mayor. Our next public infrastructure meeting will be on Wednesday, December 4th at 5:30 PM in the council chambers. We're going to have Vice Chair Reckelberg actually be chairman for that one. I'll be possibly in on the Zoom meeting. I'll be on a family vacation in Florida, so right now at 4:30 Eastern Time. I don't have any plans, but
Hey,
we'll see, I guess,
if I were you, I would enjoy time with
on
family.
December 4th.
I think your wife might have something to say about that, too. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it would be 6:30 Eastern Time, technically.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, 6:30. Thank you for that.
Now it's dinner time, so your wife will have something to say. I'm sorry? Oh, yeah, okay. Thank you. That's it then. All right, thank you. Public safety, we'll move to Alderman Tim Bolt. Anything?
The only thing I have for this meeting is that our next meeting is on Monday, December 9th at 5:30 in the exact chambers.
Thank you. And then we have two plan commission items.
We have document 1926, which is Hope House of Manitowoc County, request for an amendment to a conditional use permit for the operation of a transitional housing use located at 1000 South 35th Street. Plan Commission returns same, recommending to approve the amendment to the conditional use permit for the Hope House, increasing the number of individuals being served at a single time from 26 to 35 individuals.
Council pleasure on this report.
Move for the adoption of the committee's report, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion and second discussion. Thank you for sticking around that long. Hope you learned something too. Well, Jan, you've been through this 100 times. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously.
Document 2021 is an ordinance amending section 22.010 of the municipal code entitled Official Map Master Subdivision Plans. Plan Commission returns same, recommending to adopt the ordinance.
Council pleasure on this ordinance.
Move to adopt the ordinance, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion second discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. That exhausts.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, quickly, I made a mistake, and Mackenzie can attest as I've been having problems with my iPad all night but actually the Finance Committee will meet on Tuesday, December 3rd. I'm sorry, I must have somehow jumped ahead, or if it was in November. November 3rd, 5:30 PM.
December.
Sorry, December 3rd, no, here, and now it's not just the iPads, myself.
Yes.
December 3rd, Tuesday, 5:30 PM, here in the Common Council chambers.
The operator, not the machine.
And at this time, Mr. Mayor, I will be quiet, so thank you very much.
Any other business for the good of the order? If not, look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. We are adjourned.